Mark there somewhere.
Yes.
It is. All right.
Lightning strike won't go that far. It's like why my wife won't let me sit next to her in church.
Okay, we're all set. So it's just a couple minutes after 3, and we will call this meeting of the Board of Selectmen, Wednesday, December 8th, our regular meeting, to order. I guess the first thing we have on the agenda is some public hearings. So I'm going to, can I have a motion to open the public hearing on the parking ordinance?
I so move.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. I think that the parking ordinance has been out for folks to look at. Does anybody have any comments or questions they want to input for the parking ordinance? None? That'll be for another day, I guess.
Well, we also can talk about it at the budget hearings. We usually highlight other things that are going to be on the warrant.
Okay.
Is this designating the spaces we've talked about as per the map, or is this just a
No.
general?
No, this is just the general changes, Mike. It does
Gotcha.
not address the specific areas.
Okay,
Including the ones that are temporarily approved.
right. No, I know that's going to
Right.
require some
Right.
conversations.
Right. Okay, so I guess we are finished with the public hearing on the parking ordinance for this time. We'll probably have another one.
I'm sure.
So can I have a move to close that?
I will move to close the public hearing on parking.
I will second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, can I have a motion to open the public hearing on additional grant funding acceptance for the water project?
I so move.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with this, we have been given additional money by ARPA. Is that where it's from? It's ARPA, $300,000 in additional funding for the town water system project. This is the one that will eventually, construction will be completed out there on West Branch Road, connecting up the well number 3 to the treatment building, well number 2 to the treatment building, and also creating a new cross the creek line so that we can pump up to the reservoir on Snows Mountain. So originally we had been told that was how much, Mark?
We were going to get 250,000 towards that.
Right.
It has been increased. I'm sorry, $200,000. It's being increased to $500,000.
Okay, but quickly, we initially, when the project was first put before the town, the budget was $1 million.
That's
Then
right, and we were getting zero funding.
We're getting zero money, but we did have to come back to the town and raise the project to 1.15 million because of
Yes.
cost increases. So the money we're getting is great and all that, but it's not against, if you're keeping score at home, it's not, we're getting 524 against the original million. We're getting 524 against 1.15 and still rising, but it still helps.
Right,
That's correct.
definitely helps. So does anybody have any public input on our accepting 300,000 additional dollars from the federal government to be used in a way that makes sense on the town water system project? Okay, hearing no other input, can I have a motion to close the public hearing? We'll probably have another one on this too.
Yes,
I so move.
I will second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, privilege of the floor. Hello,
Me?
yes.
Hi, Mark, it's Tori.
Hi, Tori.
Just here to remain on the radar for services on the north end of town, bathrooms and trash. I just don't want this to fall off the radar in the cold, snowy months, because I think it remains an issue. And if we wait until next summer for me to raise it again, it will be no good.
Okay,
Officially saying the same thing I've said again.
okay.
Thank you.
Mark, we had difficulty getting porta potties, right?
Yes, we did.
For the end of the year.
Yeah, and so we can make arrangements for those as part of a 22 budget.
Okay.
To make sure they happen however you guys want to set them up.
Yeah, I wasn't here for this conversation. It was the one meeting I missed. And my question is, where are these porta potties going? Are they going on town land? Are they going on your land? Or are they going on?
For now, I've offered that they can go on our land. I'm hopeful that at some point there's discussion about a more permanent solution on the north end of town.
Okay, and are you asking for the town to absorb the cost of this completely?
I am not going to absorb the cost of this.
No, I understand that, but I think that we should talk about this with the hiking initiative through the rec department. It's a good share for the town to put into this, but there are other venues that will be using these porta potties and they will benefit from them. So I think we should talk about some cost sharing.
There may be a model that's developing on that.
Okay, good. I just don't want to assume that
Right.
we're saying as a town that we're going to pay for porta potties in perpetuity
Okay.
in a
yeah.
certain area of town. Especially if it's not on our land where,
Yeah, so I defer to whoever's having that discussion. My stance on this has been consistently that I can solve my own problems, which is traffic in and out of my buildings.
No,
and
I
traffic.
understand your problem.
I'm raising this more as a constituent of the town, that I would prefer there to be more services for people. I have been bearing the cost of that, both financially and in terms of water usage, for instance, or toilet paper usage for many years. So I'm happy to help it bridge a solution, but I'm not gonna get involved in who pays for it other than kindly and respectfully, not me.
Okay.
Thank you.
But one of the things we're discussing in the Municipal Solid Waste Committee, and this will be related,
Mhm.
is a cost sharing agreement for a small dumpster and the north end of town. And we've talked about, based on previous comments you had made, about putting the dumpster in the parking lot
Mhm.
area there. And yesterday, Mike Capel was supposed to come and raise this, and I'll just raise it briefly. He may come and we can talk about it some more, perhaps under privilege of the floor later, or board concerns. But the idea is being, I think this is where the Solid Waste Committee came out yesterday, is that the town form a cost sharing agreement with the Waterville Academy, the tennis center, and the resort to share in the costs of a smaller dumpster in that area. And that could be a model for, or be part of a larger discussion about waste and trash and bathroom in that area. So I wanted to raise it to the select board at this time to see how you guys felt about pursuing this sort of approach.
Okay. Mark, what's going in the budget is basically putting some porta potties out there as an interim step next year. Is that correct?
That would be what we would do at this time as far as the bathroom issue is concerned.
Okay.
But we could make it, as Rich said, we could make it as part of the same sort of a sharing, cost sharing between the entities, and that kind of addresses what Mike was bringing up as his concern.
Well, the other concern is who's going to maintain these porta potties?
Well,
There's no such thing as a porta potty that's not clean.
usually you have a contract.
Yeah,
with-
no, I had it when I had the golf course, and they dropped the potty and they picked it up.
Right. And so they're going to, what they have done for the rec department in the past is they have, dropped off the porta potty, replaced them every week, clean them, whatever their arrangement. But we have had,
All right, just
Longer
to
term.
be clear that they're going to be, if we put them out, they're going to be maintained and cleaned on a daily basis, not a weekly or monthly basis. It doesn't do us any good to have something that is not to the benefit of everybody.
Right.
All right,
Okay.
I probably won't have to deal with it, but okay.
Well, it won't be far for you. In case you have to use one, it's not far walk. Yeah, okay. Onward, minutes review and approval. We've had all kinds of minutes, the 27th, the 10th, the 23rd, and the 1st, and everybody has given their input to Sharon.
I think so.
Are
I
there-
lost track. But I think
I got so confused with which ones I
I
had
did or
been.
didn't. Do we get them all?
I think you got them all, yeah.
Okay.
The 27th.
And I just didn't have to deal with the first.
That
Right.
you weren't. You weren't.
Right. So can I have a motion to pass the minutes from those 4 meetings?
I so move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Financial reports. 2021 expenditures and revenues.
Yeah, you have your update where we are tracking very well in both. By the time we bill the fourth quarter water, wastewater, and trash fees and account for the fund balance use, we will have met and actually exceeded our estimated revenues. So we will be in the plus territory for those. And where all departments are tracking right along with their anticipated expenditures. Looks like we will end the year with a surplus on the expense side as well. So we will be returning, I don't know the exact numbers, of course, right now, but we will be returning to fund balance on both sides.
Okay. How's the collection on second half taxes coming?
Steve, Judy, do you, or Sharon, do you have any idea where we are? I have not looked right now personally.
Do we have any people, in the past, we would have a running tab with some people? Has that disappeared?
No,
for the month?
we can, I don't have that right with me right now, but we can get that to you.
This is the people that we have liens.
That we
on,
get
or
close to reading
Yeah,
because they,
close to
they
lien. Yeah.
take the
Yeah,
time.
we'll do that for the next meeting, Mike.
Okay, great.
We'll have that list for you.
All righty.
But I'm not aware, given the number of sales that have occurred,
Exactly.
that is a very short list compared to the past.
Right.
Okay.
And I would venture to guess, Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're probably ahead of our historical collections tax-wise,
Yes.
aren't
yes.
we? Again, because of the number of sales and the closings and refinancings, everything else that we've had.
Yeah, we had a December 1st due date versus I think last year was December 7th or 8th. So they were prompted to get in soon.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll provide you that list at the next meeting.
All righty. Let's move on to the department head reports. Why don't we start with Steve today?
Wait a second, Mark, did you have a category here? End of year expenses? Is there anything specific you wanted to talk about?
No, that was just what I just told you about returning to fund balance. We're
Okay.
doing very well on the end of year expenses.
Steve, do you have any update for us?
Yeah, well, just to piggyback on what Mark was alluding to, we spent this week in budget meetings with the department heads, trying to get, together a good framework that we can present to you all in the coming weeks. And, that's really been where my focus has been over the past couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Jim?
0 to 6 inches in flurries by tomorrow morning, probably, so. We don't know.
Only slightly more than a nuisance. storm.
Only slightly more than a nuisance storm. And I noticed that WMUR has picked up on that phrase too, nuisance storm.
Okay,
But anyway, not much to report. I do have some stuff under old business,
Mhm.
a little bit of an update.
okay,
And other than that, things are going quite well so far.
The
okay.
new plow truck up and running
Yes,
with lights.
with lights.
And
It finally came in.
I had a comment that I don't know to be true or not. Someone had noticed that, or said to me that they thought the lights on the bridge were bright again.
No,
We were
lights
first-
on the bridge are the same as.
Yeah,
they-
no, I
After we fixed the lights.
I
on the
didn't,
bridge.
yeah, I report what I hear. I don't have to, I'm not up late enough to investigate, so.
I've looked at them and they look fine to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just had
yes.
someone call me about that.
Okay. We'll come back to you, Jim. David and Pat.
Good. We've had a good week just working on wrapping up the end of the year for us. And getting some stuff organized for working on that grant. The fire assistance to firefighters grant stuff. And then just doing tons of regular just building inspections and certificates of occupancy and that sort of thing. It's just that time of year.
Okay.
So,
Chris still helping out with the inspections?
yes,
Okay.
One thing that we should comment, and I hate to be talking every other line, but the certificates of occupancy you're working on now are not for new properties. They are for existing commercial properties that require an annual certificate of occupancy.
that's correct.
So that, I just wanted to let people know that there weren't a lot of new properties finished yet that are in line.
No,
for that.
yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with our building, but just our commercial property. So we still have a list. There's still a bunch that, if they have a liquor license, they'll be calling me, or have called me, for an inspection. The lodges, sometimes they need reminders, and especially because of COVID, that all their occupancies carried for the year from last year, so they actually but they're showing that they expired in 2020. So we're still chipping away at getting those taken care of.
Okay.
So, and a lot of times they just need reminders, so it's good to just remind the lodges and any of the other commercial properties that they still need certificates of occupancy annually.
Okay. Pat, you gave us some graphs. I have
Yes.
questions.
Fire away. Don't
Okay,
ignore
so-
like the middle two. The squiggly lines, I can only put it on a PDF, so just.
The triple I intersection
Yes.
where we had
22,000
22,000 cars come through.
874.
At what point is the meter actually taking the reading? Because, when I
think
come
as
into
soon as-
town,
Yeah, I think as soon as it starts to light up on you, because
okay,
I think when it's getting that speed,
okay.
so, which is still pretty good that only like one or two were going 60, so.
Yeah, because, frequently when I'm coming into town, I'm coming in at 50 miles an hour, which is the speed limit. And I'm slowed down by the time I actually get to the sign. But
Based on the numbers, I
It's
do
working.
think,
yeah, exactly.
I do
So,
think it's working later than when it first gets you, because I think the numbers would be a lot higher in the
Okay.
50 and 60.
but there was actually somebody who was going over 100 miles an
Yeah,
hour.
supposedly, yeah. I saw that.
Mm.
So there's always one.
But it's not a competition, please.
Yes, correct. It is not. We're not trying to see who gets the highest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. No, I was curious about that because it does show, quite a few people coming in at that 60 or
Yeah.
so.
So I think that's what I think is it's as soon as it gets you, it's coming.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
the numbers are pretty good. That 90% on both sides are reasonable speed, which is nice. So I do, like Dave said, they're working, I think.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of compliments on the thank you. I never expected that. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of compliments on the people are excited when they get thank you.
Yeah.
We start, on another note, we start reading with the school Friday, so we're back to trying to do community stuff, get back into it. So we start reading or recess with the kids, we're gonna do it once a month from here on out. Me and Dave are working with BBTS on emergency plans that we do with our elementary school and gearing them more to school along the state guidelines. Hockey's hockey, car accidents, more of them obviously, with the weather's changing. But other than that, it's pretty much it.
How about EMS calls?
We had one on the very first day.
Uh-huh.
And,
Somebody
just a-
skiing the ice, huh?
Yep.
Yep.
They haven't been very
Well,
busy.
and apparently they had a bus from UNH show up on opening day.
They knew about that.
Yeah, so, kind of unexpected, but, only one, tibial plateau fracture, so.
God
But even
bless them.
today, I think there was 10 cars in the parking lot, 12, so it's not, we're not there yet with
Right.
volume, so.
Right. Okay.
On the, just going back to the speed board, I hadn't seen the portable around lately. Is it?
So I think
off
we're gonna
somewhere?
put it up for the winter. We're putting it up for the winter as of now. I don't think that the weather of the freezing and the wet is gonna behoove it for the long run, and I think it's too expensive to take the chance. I know my prior agency, we always put ours up for the winter. What we're going to try doing with it though, on a nice day, I'm gonna talk to Jim, he doesn't know yet, so don't tell him. To plow out a little bit over here at the Waterville campground and on busy Saturday and Sundays, if it's a nice day out, it's not freezing rain or anything. So we have it right now tucked into the bay next to the ambulance. We'll put it out there, just to remind people to slow down, or even if it's a big event or something going on. But for the majority, I think we're gonna leave it tucked away and preserve it from salt and weather in general.
You also need to have an alternate speed sign that says 35 miles an hour
Well, that one.
for
we'll
out
do.
here.
Yeah, so the radar trailer that Rich is talking about, we'll do that. We
Okay.
can put that at any speed you want. You can put 50, 60, 40, 30.
No, I mean, that's where you can set the thing,
Yep.
but underneath it, it says 25.
Yeah, we have
on
all the different numbers we
Oh,
can
okay.
plug in there, yeah. They
Okay,
flip in the
because
thing.
I noticed when it was out here on Triple-I, it was
Yep.
still, it still said
said
25,
I
yeah,
had a
okay.
conversation about that,
All right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think it's just too expensive to.
Yeah, if it's a
Because
good
when we took
day.
it off of Triple I Road after the
Yeah.
rain, it was, everything was
Yeah.
frozen solid.
Well,
So,
it's a good idea, not only because of the weather, but at 2 AM with the tide,
Yes.
the wind may get it.
yes, we
You know.
don't need that.
And we don't need that, especially if visibility is really poor.
No, it'll be, put it out in the morning, take it back at
Yeah.
night, kind of thing.
Right, I'm busy or event.
Yeah, vacation weeks,
The weather's good.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes,
and the weather's good where they don't
Yeah.
have to plow around it or anything like that.
all right, thank you.
Okay. Dylan?
Don't have much to report.
Okay.
Everything's-
That's good because whenever you usually have something to report, it costs us money.
Are you still
Okay,
using,
like,
are you still using that new prototype to process
using my-
things?
using my drive side, yeah.
And how's it work?
Well, during this time of the year.
Yeah.
Right now, the water temperature in the lagoon is right around 38 degrees Fahrenheit, so the microorganisms aren't doing hardly anything.
Yeah.
So it's more so to reduce the other end of the chemical costs, because it boosts up the pH, so it saves us on the back end from using sodium hydroxide, which costs money as well. So it's doing a little bit of both. The big thing is that you want to make sure that throughout the winter, those bugs might not do anything, but you want to keep them there.
Right.
So that chemical will help keep them there and keep them happy, so that way, earlier in the year, it may return to nitrification sooner
Yeah.
rather than later.
Right.
But it's, all in all, it's been
Good. Now, another question for you going into this world of supply chain shortages and up prices. Are you hearing from other people issues as far as getting the things you need and significant upcharges for the things we're gonna need, just our baseline stuff?
I haven't heard about significant upcharges. I mean, again, with inflation, costs are going up.
Right.
I've heard about wait times being totally ridiculous for simple things, valves, pieces of pipe.
I'm talking about more about the chemicals we
So
need on a
chemicals as
daily
well.
basis.
So the chemical companies have been sending out emails saying instead of a 2 to 3 week lead or
Yeah.
a 1 week lead, give us longer than that, which is
All right, good, so you're on it, and
correct.
they're on it as well.
Yeah, again, supply chain with the trucks and everything else,
Yeah.
it's been a nightmare, so. But all in all, luckily for us, we don't have to go through tons of chemical in a short period of time, this
Right.
time of year, so.
Dylan, there's one thing I don't understand on the report. I was looking at this today. We're comparing June to end of month,
January to end of.
January to end of month, November.
Correct.
With our increase in population, why are we treating less?
So the big thing is the rainfall.
Rainfall.
Okay,
And the other aspect of that,
so how does that affect?
The rainwater rushes through the system as well.
yeah, it's, so the numbers that Mark corrects on here is just the rainfall on the lagoons. It doesn't account for the water that makes it in.
Seeps in.
Correct, the groundwater that's around the collection system that gets into manholes, or even some pumps, they're not supposed to have in town, but if people do, they can discharge some pumps into the collection system. So
Well,
just-
but
Yeah, Mark.
so Margaret, if you look at the two highlighted lines,
Right,
so the drinking water produced and the adjusted wastewater treated, those numbers, if you go back to previous reports that I gave you, we actually, in the percentage compared numbers, we've been making up ground through the last 5 or 6 months. When we started the year with the slowdown in the commercial activity that we had at the beginning of this year because of the end of COVID, I believe, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I believe we were up over 10% behind. So we have seen the increase has started to show up because that minus number has been going down at the end of each month. And you
okay,
can,
so less of a difference, still less, but
Yes.
less of a difference.
that's right. And most of it came because of the lack of commercial activity at the beginning of the year.
Okay. Okay,
Dylan, is that what you're seeing?
Spot on, that's perfect.
And,
The other-
yeah, go ahead.
That we don't, the mountain doesn't use drinking water from the town, they have a well. So we receive their sewage. So come January, February, March, you're gonna start seeing a big gap in the wastewater numbers and the drinking water numbers. And a lot of that has to do with what comes out of the mountain as well. So I just want to mention that because they can contribute 200, 300,000 gallons a weekend easily. So.
all right.
And the other thing is you can see especially on the sewer side, you can see those differences month to month and how our numbers in, say, July through November of 2021, those numbers are higher than the July through November numbers in 19 and 20. You see the actual monthly comparisons, and that's where we've been making up the difference. And that's even with our rainfall being significantly lower than 19 and 20. And that's why that minus number has been getting smaller. The other piece to this puzzle is that our peaks and valleys, with the peaks being the weekends usually and the valleys being the weekday numbers, when you break these numbers down into a daily count, they are much more steady than they have been in the past. And so that means that Dylan is having to run the plant on a more consistent basis. where we were able to shut down, for a couple, 3, sometimes even 4 days during the week. And we didn't have to run the plant overnight. We could treat the water for 8 hours and then shut everything down. He's had to spend more time personnel-wise manning the plant because the plant's been in operation. So that's also impacting the way he is having to treat the water.
Okay. I'm probably gonna need this explained to me at least 3 or
Yeah.
4
That's
times.
No,
okay.
and that's okay.
There's also one other thing I want to add.
Because I still see a number here is lower than it
Yeah,
used to
yeah.
be, and yeah.
There's another thing that's also contributing to the lagoon height, meaning how much volume is in the lagoons. When we made that repair to one of our lagoons, I believe it was the summer of 2020, we piped everything to go into the second lagoon. Okay, well, that flow has never stopped ever since we made that repair, going into the second lagoon. So it's not only us receiving sewage going in from town, it's also us receiving twice as much flow than we typically would have from that top lagoon going into the lagoon. So it's maintaining a higher height, even with us running more frequently.
Because you were losing
Correct,
quite a bit.
correct.
Hmm.
So just one thing that's another thing that's, as the facility starts to age, more issues pop up where we're
Right.
captured.
Right.
We're just getting more flow coming out of that top lagoon.
Okay. Calendar review. Next regular.
Margaret,
Yeah.
can I make one comment?
Yeah.
Technology is a wonderful thing, and Judy is watching the meeting. Mike, to answer your question, we billed $5,218,000 in taxes this year. We have collected 73.5% of that. And our outstanding balance right now is $383,900, which is tracking, I would say, probably a little bit of it ahead. We usually end the year with around 250 or so thousand outstanding, and we have the rest of this month to collect. So collections are tracking very close.
It sounds like it's over 90%, Mark. If you've got 5 million in bookings and you're owed 323, you should be over 90 instead of 70.
Yeah, maybe my technology wasn't that good, but 383,900 divided by
Always blame it on the technology.
5,218,191. Oh yeah, it's 93. I'm sorry, I read it incorrectly. It is 93%
That's
collected.
good.
Sixth grade education I got myself.
There you go. There you go.
Hey, I'm 1,000 miles away and I'm doing this. Come on.
Trying to distinguish between a 9 and a 7 without your glasses on.
Right, exactly. I can't read. I'm
Yeah,
going.
that's great to see that number come
Yeah.
up, because we had, for the longest time, some severe carryovers.
Yeah.
Okay, calendar review. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for December 22nd at 3. I am unable to make that meeting. I'm going to be driving back from New York City that day. So
And it's also Festivus Eve.
it is. It is. Do we really need to have another meeting in December is the question.
That's totally up to you. You're going to have several additional meetings in January because of budget.
What do you guys think?
I'm fine with not having a meeting, but if something comes up,
If
we can
something
always
comes
Zoom
up.
post it.
Let's schedule it between Christmas and New Year's if something comes
So
up.
Are you out of the country or away from?
No, I'll be back on the evening of the
Yeah.
22nd. I just won't be
Yeah.
back for 3 o'clock. So I'll be around here for,
So could we tentatively put down the 29th and we'll adjust that if we need to?
right,
Sure.
okay,
Because I'm also scheduled to be back by then, so.
Okay.
Okay.
And the next planning board meeting is tomorrow.
Anything
It
good on
is.
Anything good on the
Anything good on
agenda?
that agenda, Wendy?
Oh, it's always something good. on the agenda.
I'll let the chair speak.
Nothing too urgent. Potentially doing changes. Tara's still cracking whip on us for the master plan.
Okay. All right, on to new business, the offsite solicitation permit update. We have a proposed from Public Safety.
Yeah, thank you to Dave for coming up with this draft. I think it starts to address a lot of the issues. We provided you with what we currently use, which is the one-page sheet that's marked current. And we provided the actual ordinance, the way that it was adopted by town meeting in 1990. And I guess I would just turn it over to you guys with any questions that you have or comments on the proposed versus the current sheets.
Start, Mark?
I just had this one question in number 1. You have started, it says no mobile
Right.
vendor may
I had
remain
the
on
same
site
question.
for more than 3 consecutive days without moving. What is the definition of a mobile vendor? And we have all these different fee structures. So who is this talking about?
So this was talking about, in the notes that I got about the discussion points, is creating a fee structure more for your food truck vendors, type vendors. And having a different fee structure for them. But in order to comply with your ordinance, you can't be in place more than 3 days. But it doesn't say that we can't give them a permit for a longer period of time, which means I'm gonna be here just on weekends, so I'd like to do seasonal, but I'm gonna have, I'll be here on Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, for example, or just Friday and Saturdays.
But still
for
in
example.
3-day increments because of the ordinance.
Because of the
Ordinance
ordinance.
as it
So
reads
without
now.
changing the ordinance,
Right.
okay, this is a way where we can kind of you can still allow it for longer periods of time, but your mobile vendors, they can't remain in that location for more than 3 days at a time.
See, that's what I'm confused about. You can have your permit for a longer period of time, but you have to move, so you can't set up a vending, like say you want to set up an ice cream truck and you want to run it every night for the whole summer. Now, what this is saying, you can't be there more than 3, is this saying you can't leave it
So
overnight?
it means you can't leave it
make a
on the
permit?
property. If you take it home at night and come back, then that's fine.
Okay, but what if someone wants to do that and they have permission? Does
That's-
that make it instead of a portable, does that make it a permanent?
That would, well, and I think that's the distinction, is trying to make it versus a permanent versus a temporary type, because this is an outside vendor. It's not a permanent part of whatever commercial property that it's being on.
We would-
And so I think you kind of dance around a little bit trying to define, what that is between your temporary, and I think the 3 days kind of helps you with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, that also goes, go ahead, Rich. You're going to talk about the planning board part of this.
Well, I was one of the things I was going to mention, but first, we are kind of locked in because of what the selectmen's ordinance now reads in 3-day increments,
Okay.
or just 3 days. So we would have to change that if we wanted to allow somebody to, if we wanted to permit somebody to say, set up and stay
Section
there.
3 in the ordinance says 3 days.
Right. So we would have to change that. But the larger issue, and this is, I think, what Mark was referring to, is that a couple years ago, we changed the zoning ordinance, site plan, I should say, site plan review, to include something called minor site plan review.
Right.
And the idea was to capture those categories of activities that did not, and Wendy, please jump in, that did not require extensive engineering or documents or drawings, but rather to capture these sorts of minor changes to activities that could occur on somebody's property that they already could do. And the one issue perhaps I think people would have, I have to think through it myself, in terms of permitting, if we're talking about food trucks, I think the idea with food trucks is that if someone wanted to set up a food truck, say on a weekend, say a 3-day period, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or a long weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that would be fine. But if someone wanted to have it there longer, like every day or every weekend, or at some interviews, say throughout the summer, it would only be fair for the abutters to comment on, say, noise or smell that could come, or traffic that could come from that activity. So that's what we were trying to capture, I think, in a minor site plan review. And I'm not, in terms of permitting, I'm not sure we want to permit something for, say, all season and not have people who live around that activity be able to comment on that.
Didn't we talk about changing the phrase from minor site plan review to change of use? And to make it more encompassing and more like, let me give you an example.
I don't remember, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think we had, because we talked with Tara when Craig was in about minor site plan review, that maybe we should change the language to make it, this is more for a planning board issue than a select board issue, to make it change of use. Because I think change of use is more defining, meaning if I wanted to put, if it was permitted at my house, and if I wanted to go to the front of my property and put an ice cream truck permanently on the front of my property and operate it as little or as much as I wanted to, it would be something that needed some kind of approval. And where we are with this is I'm getting confused with daily, week, month, where what happens if someone decides to come in and put a permanent, say, if Tartaglia, if Pat gets another truck and she wants to put one permanently here and leave it all the time, even though it's not being operated every day.
Well, if it's on her, if she would have property and on her property.
Yeah, it could on her property or on a permissible property.
Well, then she would have to get site
Then it
plan.
becomes a permanent business, I think.
That's right. And it would have to have site plan review if the truck was going to remain on site permanently.
But I would suggest we change the word minor site plan review to change of use, because the use of the property is being changed. And I think that.
In some cases, perhaps it's not though, like the one thing that I use to catch myself up, the minor site plan review is frequently stuff like increased traffic or parking. And those are things that are encompassed in a regular site plan as well. And minor, I don't know, maybe just a matter of semantics.
Yeah, but I think it's easier and more encompassing. Where when you talk about site plan, you assume that you have to do something with your site and you have to provide plans.
And the only other
Where when you're talking about just a change of use, whether it's permitted or not, and the abutters complain or not.
Yeah, but change of use implies that it's not something that's already being done. And I think of something like, so you have a coffee truck, say, on a corner lot.
Right.
And they decide to bring in a food truck. They're already there selling food, so they're not really changing their.
No, but we were.
But this is the reverse of what we went through on the golf
Yeah.
course, because he had the right to serve his food on a truck and a cart through the area. So he wasn't changing his use by allowing the food trucks there.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to get on by the change of use or an additional use or an extended.
It would
use.
have to be something like additional use, because we also tried to capture like increasing the size of a deck up to a certain limit.
Change of use, additional use. No, it's not like you're gonna add spaghetti to a Chinese restaurant. That's not what we're talking about here, or you.
Well, the issue though, I think, is we have an ordinance that allows an outside vendor to use someone else's property for these 3-day increments. Okay. And how do we permit or how do we regulate that use so that they don't just bring their truck in, park it on someone else's property, and then come in, 3 days at a time and run their business out of it? Because
No, I get what you're saying, Mark, but this permit doesn't apply to that, because if someone was gonna park their truck permanently on someone's house, it doesn't apply to a 3-day month or any of this other stuff. I think it becomes a change of use of that property.
Well, then that would require a minor site plan review. And that was always the dividing line in my mind. Was
Yeah.
It was based on time.
Right.
If it was only 3 days, then you could do it. And there's this larger philosophical argument. I think we've all seen the wigwag article about food trucks and whether they should be allowed or not, but setting that argument aside to say a public hearing and see what the town thinks about it. Just looking at how we operate now, it always struck me as a timing thing. Whereas if you're just talking 2 or 3 days, conventionally, we're talking a weekend, then all you would have to do is get a permit. But if you're looking at something much more extensive, then you'd have to go through minor site
No,
plan
no,
review.
I-
None of these, I think I'm agreeing with you.
You are agreeing with me.
Yeah,
But I see the
Yeah.
issue coming when someone takes the seasonal permit and
Right.
goes, I've got a seasonal permit, why are you making me move my truck?
well,
Because-
yeah, but
Doesn't allow you to
I-
keep it there for more than 3 days.
that's right. That's exactly right. And
I get it, I just think,
but I think that their Selectmen's Ordinance number 9 is in direct conflict with our site plan review requirements of the planning board, because this allows the selectmen to regulate a business as long as they do not operate for more than 3 days at a time. It does allow them outside of the site plan review to do that. The question is, do you want them to get a permit every 3 days? Or do you want to go to something like this where we can permit them for a longer period of time? They're still limited to that 3-day on-site limit.
okay, as long as that's said, if that's what this is saying.
That's the
I
intent.
found it confusing.
That's the intent of this. It just says that you're gonna, so the month of January, you would come in, you would pay $100 fee. It would cover the entire month of January. And any time within the month of January, you could drive your vehicle, whether it's a food truck or a retail truck or a stationary cart, and you could put it on someone else's land for up to 3 days at a time, and then you have to remove it and then come back. But anytime during the month of January, you'd be able to do that for the $100.
How long do you have to remove for? Is it like a 24 hours? So you're out for 2 or 3 days, out for 24 hours, back for 3 days? I mean,
Well,
out of town,
yeah.
turn around and.
unfortunately, the ordinance does not specify how long that is.
Under campground rules, you have to move from one campsite to the next.
That's right.
Now we gotta define campsites, is 6 feet over defined as a new campsite?
Well, exactly. And you're right, Mike. It's like what, unfortunately, and again, that goes against, right? That kind of goes against that minor site plan review
That's what I
requirement
find.
That's
or
what-
the site plan review requirement. I think we have to balance these out. So it's more than just the permit application that you guys are considering. It also needs to go to the planning board because they got to weigh in on how to handle this.
And I think the planning board's interest would be, would revolve around the abutters and then having
Yeah.
a food truck or some other entity that would create a different environment.
Yeah.
If it's a longer term thing.
Right, and then you have someone who's gonna come up with an issue going, well, I want to get my food truck in here, but the next planning board meeting is until August 9th. So
Yeah,
I
but-
can't,
They could do it for, they can get a permit for a few days to do it.
I understand, but if that's not what their goal is.
No, but then they can just,
Yeah.
They would have to plan ahead of time.
Yeah,
yeah.
but then they, if they're planning something they're gonna put down on concrete blocks and they've got to figure out, they've got to move it every 3 days until the planning board meets. I'm just
Well,
thinking,
if they figure
Well-
it out
Yeah.
More than 3 weeks. in
but
advance,
does this give public safety a lot of discretion? Because if it does do that, I think we're fine.
It's really up to you because you guys are the enforcement of that. So you get to decide. And you can, the ordinance is very liberal as far as you deciding what kind of restrictions that you can put on this permit. If you said they're fine, they don't have to move until the decision of the planning board, you could do that if you wanted to.
Yeah, I was gonna ask whether ordinance number 9 allows us to make any exceptions as.
Yeah.
Because it's good, you have a lot of latitude.
Well, we could potentially, I'm sure someone in the audience, presuming there's somebody listening somewhere or will listen later, it would presumably allow us to prohibit completely
Yeah,
the operation of food trucks in Waterville Valley as
and
well.
it creates a precedent no matter which way we act.
Right.
Mhm. And I'm fine, we could change this where, the 3-day permit is one, doesn't require, the next 3 are asterisk that says, if you choose these next 3, you need a
Minor site plan review.
And we add another check off that's been accomplished, on
And
there.
we can limit, you can limit the 3-day period. You can interpret that to mean 3 days in a year,
Right,
3 days in a month,
right.
without doing site plan or minor site plan review.
And we're heading into a new level of overcomplicating this now.
Well, and that's right, Mike, and that's exactly why we put these periods of time so that we're not renewing this every 3 days or tracking when was the last time they got an off-site solicitation permit. That's going to be a real pain to.
See, I think we should just create a huge amount of leeway for public safety to control this and deal with this and take it on an individual basis where it can be dealt with immediately as opposed to someone having to wait to come before a board that doesn't meet on a very timely basis, especially in the summer.
Is this ordinance, it doesn't talk about food trucks, but have we ever used it for anything but food trucks?
There was at one time the tent, the ski tent, Sportoma would use this, for example. They haven't used this particular permit. They've been doing it just through strictly a tent permit. But this would be an appropriate use of that, the Sportoma, the annual ski sale.
Yep. And we have had some door-to-door or other retail sales people that have used this a long time ago.
When
More
they
than
have
10
the
years ago.
craft, when they have the craft
Right.
fair in.
The craft fair, yep.
Okay, so those folks all have to get permits?
They technically under the ordinance, yes, because they would be selling stuff on land of other people.
But
And my last question, just listening to all this, the food trucks that came in last year, didn't they all go home every night?
yeah,
Yeah. It is.
That's right. But the
So
question,
it's not putting a great deal of problem on the food trucks that have been permitted if in fact their intent is to go home every night.
no, the problem, right, but the problem that we had is what, did they have to get a permit every day that they came back?
Right,
Because-
I understand that, but I was worried, where it said, gee, what if somebody wants to stay longer than 3 days? Well, we may be trying to address an issue that doesn't exist because they don't want to stay longer than 3 days. They may want to be here more than 3 days, but they aren't necessarily here beyond 3 consecutive days because they take the food truck home every night.
Right, they need to clean up, they need to restock, all that.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
All right, in reading this, I want to throw another hand grenade into this for a second.
So I knew you were gonna cause trouble today, right? Didn't I say?
I'm
You
not
could
meaning-
tell when he walked in the door.
I'm reading ordinance 9 and I've got some confusion with there, but one of the things I'm thinking about, if this permit is allowable, can a magazine company drop a bunch of their salespeople off and pay a $20 fee for each person? They can go door to door in town selling magazines. I think they can based on what I'm reading.
No, because they'd
No.
have to have permission from each property owner.
No,
to
they're
go on
not
the
selling it
property.
from the property. They're selling it on their own. This doesn't say anything like that. I think Mark's agreeing with me that this would open that up for people, where in the past we've had a no solicitation policy.
Well, no, yeah, but they would have to get a permit from you guys. They would have to apply for that, and you could say that, yes, this is permitted, or no, that you are going to substantially affect the community, that opening paragraph. And so, no, you're in violation of the ordinance and we're not going to grant the permit. That's your
Well-
fault.
This ordinance prevents all door-to-door sales solicitation.
It does?
It does.
I
You
didn't read
cannot,
that.
you cannot go door to door.
Because you would need permission from
because
the
you're-
property
it's-
owner,
It's public,
right?
okay? It's considered, you are selling in public, you're not on a commercial property of another.
Oh, okay.
Ran into a problem is the door-to-door religious groups, the
Yeah.
voter groups, the information groups. If they're not selling anything, then it's not against the ordinance.
Hmm.
This ordinance only covers solicitations for a commercial purpose. Okay?
Oh, and that's where it says public and other quasi-public areas, Dave.
Yeah,
Okay, so then it's not allowed if it's not in those areas.
that's right. So
Okay,
this
all right.
prohibits all solicitation. When it comes to door-to-door sales, your ordinance covers it. It's not allowed.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right.
On a commercial property.
So if one of our local pizza vendors wants to put something on Waterville Valley Academy land, and Waterville Valley Academy is not a commercial enterprise, it's a nonprofit.
Mhm.
Are
They
they,
can still do it as long as they have permission from the landowner.
as long as they have permission from the
Yeah.
land?
And that activity is allowed in that, because it's not, the use has to be allowed,
Yeah,
otherwise you subvert the zone.
yes.
I still think it comes down to a timing issue of trying to give the abutters some say
Yeah.
in commercial activity that,
Oh, no, I agree with you.
yeah, I'm not sure how to get there now.
So is
Because of all
food,
your hand grenades.
is food truck an allowed usage on private land?
Well, no, it would be commercial activity. I mean, it depends what land you're
Yeah.
talking about, yeah?
But
If
here's
it's
what we're
allowed
getting-
in the zone, they would, right?
Yeah.
If
If it's
you,
commercial or
Or-
BC, you could.
could it be considered a home business?
No, I think we may have defined it out. I'd have to look at what's allowed in the home occupation.
And
Let's go back to a lemonade stand. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Lemonades, what's in
The
between a
infamous lemonade
stand?
stand
What's the
standard.
difference between a lemonade stand and someone selling pizza at the end of the driveway?
Did the pizza truck come here?
Now, I'm not talking about a truck. I'm talking about selling pizza at the end of your driveway.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a truck or whether it's something else. If the truck is in your backyard, you're not selling it out of your truck. You're selling out of the end of your driveway. Same thing as a kid is selling his lemonade.
If it's your property, this doesn't apply. If you are on someone else's property. then
No, but
it
at home business does apply in certain zones.
Yeah.
What's considered a home business?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We have it pretty well specified of what's allowed and what's not
Right.
allowed. I'd have to look,
There's a big thing about parking and how many
Oh,
employees.
no, I get it. It's,
yeah, especially in LDR.
Yeah.
And again, this doesn't get to the larger issue about
do we want food
do we
trucks
want
all
food
over the
trucks
town?
in the town? And perhaps we should
It's
have a public
all-
hearing
it's
on
all-
that too.
It's all, what really boils down to, what is the
Right.
goal of this permit?
Yeah.
What are we trying to achieve?
What are we trying to regulate?
Or what are we trying to regulate? So if food trucks are okay, then how do we?
Yeah.
How do we manage
And
that?
right now they are okay, unless we as a
Yeah.
board decide in all our glorious power to,
See,
And they are okay, but we don't like the old permit application. So I think what David's trying to do
Right, no,
is to
that's
give
what
us
we're trying-
something that has a little more meat in it, if you
absolutely
will.
correct.
Yeah,
But still meshing with the minor site plan review that we,
right,
had
but
installed
the
a couple
point
of
I'm
years
trying
ago.
to, I started at and trying to get to
yeah,
with all the food trucks is by throwing it back to public safety. If someone puts a food truck in a place that's an intersection that where the parking creates a huge nuisance, you know, you should be able to say no.
Mhm. And we will,
Yeah,
but
but you will if you're out on the ambulance and, you know, and you guys, you know, we're limited with our enforcement
mhm.
at the point of enforcing. You know, if you're out on the ambulance and all of a sudden this whole intersection is blocked up because of the food truck and you ask the people there to move, but 20 minutes later, you're on another ambulance call.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then people didn't know that the next group of pickup people.
hopefully it's this kind of activity is kind of a planned activity, and I think
Yeah.
most of the local towns have adopted some sort of permit application where I think most of the local offsite folks are coming in, or this isn't gonna be too foreign to them.
right.
They're used to having to jump through these kinds of hoops, so to speak, in order to secure their location, in town. It's the fly-by-nights, you know, the fly-by-nights and the guy that just shows up, we can deal with those.
what about 2 food trucks at a time or 3 on somebody's property?
We'll take them as they come.
If you look at paragraph 5 of the proposed permit, it actually is just about what's required under minor site plan review. You want a description or a picture of what the setup's going to be. I mean, it very closely tracks with what we're gonna be requiring under minor site plan review.
Would you have the public input? It would be noticed in the same way as a site
No,
plan
just
review?
be a
So
permit.
So that's the difference.
Yeah, that's what I'm,
Well-
that's the point. I think.
That's right. And so is there anything that says that we can't put that requirement in, that the selectmen have to notice the owners,
The abutters.
the abutters? Yeah. It's not required under the ordinance, but
Or that they have to.
that might be the recommendation from the planning board back to you guys.
So is the next step on this for the planning board to take it up?
I hope so.
I see what you're doing there. I see what you're doing.
Well, yes, I suppose. I mean, we could discuss the planning, but well, I'll let the chair
No,
speak.
I mean, we serve at your pleasure. So sit on our plate, but we'll be meeting tomorrow and.
I guess the question that I have is the proposed application better to you than the current application that we have?
Without a doubt,
Yes,
without a
Okay.
doubt.
I think we're talking about modifications of
Yeah.
what was a really good effort. And
Yeah,
I think-
so,
And I looked at it based on the information packet, and I think somebody gave me an example of Plymouth's
Right.
that was in here. And to be honest with you, I used this based off of what I saw, what the recommendations were in our ordinance. And I really didn't have taken into consideration the zoning, the site plan review stuff, so.
Well, the-
So that's the product of what you're seeing there is just basically what based off of the ordinance.
So I think ordinance number 9 actually has more weight behind it than the site plan than the site plan review regs, because the ordinance 9 was adopted by the town. So that is a town meeting vote. So I think we need to try to, if you need to modify anything, I think
Ordinance 9.
well, I mean, you'd have to send ordinance 9 back to town meeting.
Oh, no, I said if we have to modify something, this would be the place to do it in ordinance 9.
Yeah, or you can change the site plan review process to track and provide some more guidance, because the planning board can do that. Right?
Can
I
the
mean,
planning board provide the selectmen with a list of zones within which off-site solicitation is permitted?
Two come to mind,
Sure.
C1 and BC.
Yeah.
Will be the two zones. Those are the two zones that commercial activity is allowed.
Recreation.
And rec too, I thought.
Can we do
Correct.
rec allowed?
Yeah,
I mean, I
As an
think we ought
accessory?
to know that. If we're making a decision on signing a permit, we ought to at least know that.
Hmm.
From
That
a
it's allowed in
zoning
the zone.
perspective, that it's allowed in the zone.
Allowed in the zone.
And I don't know whether that's a check by somebody on the planning board, or whether it's just if you give us the guidelines, we'll follow the
Right.
guidelines in terms of zoning.
Well, if they came in front of the planning board, that would be one of the things the planning board would check, is that use allowed in that zone?
Right.
But it could be just a box on,
Yeah, the chart breaks it out pretty straightforwardly too.
yeah.
With how to use it.
I think, I don't want to speak for you, Wendy, but I think we can discuss it
Oh,
and see
absolutely.
what the planning board thinks about it.
Yep.
And see how we can perhaps fix this, or at least get the circle unsquared. Is that what I'm trying to say?
Well, and I am anticipating that there will be people with food trucks who might want to be here between Christmas and New Year's.
Well, we have a process now. The
But
process now allow,
would we
right,
use the new application with them?
I think we're still playing with it.
yeah. See, I think with the old application, once again, I'll go back to public safety. It gives public safety a lot of discretion.
It just, but it has that
Yes.
3-day limit, that consecutive 3-day limit.
Mhm.
And then everything else goes to, if you then, you don't know it from the permit, but if you know the zone, the site plan review, then you'd have to go to site plan review, wanted more than minor site plan review, if you wanted a more than 3 days. Right? That's the way it is now, at least as I understood it.
Yeah, if you wanted to set up something that's semi-permanent.
Yeah,
Where
like
you're
for
not gonna
season.
move it for, yeah,
if the BBTS wanted to have the pizza truck in their parking lot
and leave it there.
and leave it all winter, that would be a,
That's where the great confusion comes
Yeah.
up about this.
But I think for that, you have to close the loophole, like,
Exactly.
if they're there every single day from 9 to 5, but leave in the evening, they're still there every day. even
Yeah,
though they're leaving
right, it's
town.
really a permanent,
I mean.
Yeah,
That's where you
yeah.
gotta.
That's where that ambiguity on that first line comes up that makes it seem, well, I bought a seasonal permit. Oh, the seasonal permits means, that-
yeah,
Well,
that's what I'm having.
that's
trouble
where
with.
I think you had the question with me as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's where I started,
Yeah.
but then you helped confuse me more. so.
Or a month. Or even week, depending on when we want to
Yeah.
consider it to be a more of a temporary as opposed to a
Yeah,
quasi
the issue
permanent.
I'm having is that I like the new proposed application. I
Okay.
think it's much more complete
It is.
and documents some of the concerns that were brought to our attention with respect to licensing and inspection and all of those kind of things. And I would love to be able to use something like that. And again, I'm anticipating that somebody is going to want to put a food truck here
Okay.
between Christmas and New Year's. because the town restaurants at that point in time, as good as they are, they cannot necessarily handle all of the demand for food.
Well, I mean, do we want to, then that gets to the question of, do we keep the checkbox for week, month, and seasonal there? Because that's where we're having, I think, the difficulty in trying to come up with a method here. Or that it says anything longer than a daily over 3 days.
Or do you offer a weekend permit or a yearly permit for someone who's gonna be here on just one weekend? Or 2 or 3 weekends they can get that, or someone who's gonna be here all year for 3-day periods?
So the
You
latter
know,
is
you can
a
still
site
keep,
plan review
you can
for me.
still keep your 3-day thing, you can't be here more than 3 days. But if you're gonna be here all season or all year, you make one fee for that and one fee for one weekend or one day. Just 2 categories.
Yes, but that takes it, but then that takes it out of the planning board purview.
No, what I'm saying is you have the person say, let's use Joe's fish taco stand, where he's gonna be here 8 or 9 times, planning on being here every second weekend all year round.
Right.
But he's only gonna be here for the weekends.
Right,
So he pays a fee of $250 for the year, so he can be here every other weekend, because he knows he can't be here for more than 3 days in a row.
right,
Then you have Aunt Mary's knitting shop, who wants to be here for a
One day.
festival one day and wants a 1-day permit, which should be the same price as a full weekend permit.
right.
So they buy the weekend permit and they're only here once. And if they decide to come back another time, they buy another weekend
Right,
permit.
yeah,
But you have the person who's going to be here, irregularly or regularly. But not in a permanent thing. They buy an annual thing, and the annual thing, they have to fill out all this stuff. And we have it all on record. And the same thing with a 1 weekend permit. But that makes it a lot simpler to me, where the person who's thinking ahead, thinking, well, do I want to spend $50 to $25 for a weekend or $150 or $200 to be able to go all year? And then everyone knows that you're only here for 3 days at a time.
no, I understand what you're saying, and then that'll depend on enforcement. As opposed to having people ahead of time being able to weigh in on whether or not to allow such an operation for that extended period of time.
Well, it's
If
not
they're
an
in a
extended period of time. It's
A
3
year?
days in a row, but it's
For a whole year?
multi,
Oh, yeah, come back, whatever,
Yeah,
once a month, 3 days, 1 weekend a month.
Yeah.
Right. It depends where the commercial operation occurs and where the commercial entity is. I mean, what if they're next to a condo association or LDR?
then you get someone who complains and says, no, this isn't working.
That's what I mean. It gets to, that's what I was saying. It becomes an enforcement.
Oh, no, it's gonna be,
Resolution
if someone
as
complains,
opposed
it's
to-
gonna be enforcement anyways.
Right.
But if we
It's not
get,
gonna get permitted to begin with if it's
Well-
in a zone.
No,
They have to come for a
according to this, you
permit.
can do it with permission of the owner.
In a
If it's
commercial, but a
permitted,
commercial zone abutting a residential zone is what we're trying to capture.
Okay, let's.
With the minor
let's-
site
let-
plan
let's-
review.
let- Yeah, but if you get to the minor site plan review, you're dealing with another business level. Where that person's gonna have to understand that you can't come in and get a permit today. You have to get, the owner of the property you're gonna be on has to go before the planning board before they do it. So that's a completely different thing. We're talking about, this is the permit for this. The other person who's going to do that permanently, it's a completely different thing. Where maybe they can come in and do it once or twice, take the seasonal, and if they decide they want to be here, then they go in for site plan review. But if someone decides in May they want to do this, and they decide on May 10th they want to do this, they can't come in until after June 15th, because that's the next planning board meeting.
As Wendy said, they have to plan ahead.
Yeah, I get it, but I think these are transient people and transient things. These aren't, that's why the idea, if it becomes an issue, and I go back to having public safety have the ability to say, hey, no, this isn't working out because you're causing a traffic hassle every weekend here. This can't happen anymore. And that could happen with a site plan review or without a site plan review.
I also think that the ordinance gives you the latitude as you review this application, say it was an annual permit, they're supposed to list their hours and dates of operation.
Yeah.
That if it does look like it's going to be more than just a few days,
Yeah.
maybe as a condition of the permit, maybe they have to go to.
Have a site plan
have
review
a site
within
plan
60
review
days of the
within
issue of the
60
permit.
days or
There you
something
go.
like that, where you can do, where you have that latitude to impose whatever restrictions you want on this permit. That's what's nice about a permit is you can always take it up and take it back. Or revoke it.
Yeah.
Another thing, instead of 3 days in a row, can you specify 3 days out of every 7? To make it a weekly thing?
I think you're stuck by.
We're stuck by
Yeah,
the
the
ordinance.
ordinance says 3 days, and I think most people are going to be 3 days in a row.
But obviously, we were trying to capture a weekend.
Yeah.
right?
No, I mean, so it's like, that would answer the 3 days in a row, and then how long out, so 3 days in a row, then leave for 1 day, and then come back for 3 days in a row. And then for 1 day.
Yeah, I think we need to answer the question of how long out between the 3 days.
What if you said that if you got the one-time permit, Mike, that you were talking about for the knitting club, that there had to be 5 consecutive days before you could get another permit? And then that way you'd have the annual, which would cover all of the time. And like Dave said, you could put a condition on it that they go get minor site plan review within 60 days or whatever. And then your one-time person has to wait at least 5 days or 10 days, whatever you want, between permits.
Great idea.
So where are we?
So the next step would be a discussion by the planning board tomorrow.
So can we get a copy of the
think a year.
Selectmen's ordinance number 9 and the application that you're talking about?
Yeah, so I got one here if you'd like it.
Yeah, perhaps the planning board can discuss it tomorrow and then at our next meeting.
Yep.
Well, no, it's gonna be after.
It's going to be after,
It's gonna be after the
but
holiday.
yeah.
Do you know of anyone who's planning on coming in with a food truck? I don't, because I know Craig is not doing it.
Yeah.
I
The
think-
only
I
The
think
only
the
thing
one
I
that-
had heard about was perhaps a pizza truck at the academy, but I didn't know when they were thinking of starting.
I think she said January and February were the months that they were looking at, Margaret,
Okay.
when Tori's gone.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think when Tori came in, Rich, to the planning board, she had mentioned January and February.
I've forgotten, when did you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're hearing that.
but that's not, I've heard that before. I don't know where.
I think that's what Kat had talked to Tori about.
Okay,
Okay, so I think what I heard is that we're only going to have a daily or an annual permit.
Well, the daily is a 3-day.
Yeah, or a one-time and annual.
One time or annual?
Yeah, just 2
Okay.
categories.
Just 2 categories. And for the annual, there is going to be potentially the requirement for interaction with the planning board within 60 days of applying for the permit.
If it's going to be, if there's going to be if there's a request not to move the truck every 3. If
You can handle that on a case-by-case basis. You can make that a condition. So sometimes it might apply and sometimes it might not.
Okay. All right.
60 days seems generous, but
Well,
So just to clarify, what do you want the planning board to?
just discuss it and see what you guys think about food trucks and how they fit in the community.
right. And I think we would appreciate knowing, as would public safety, exactly what zones so that we know when there's a proposal to go in a certain zone, even if the property owner has said, yes, we better make sure it's one of the allowed uses in that zone.
Okay.
And then, I don't know.
I'm thinking instead of saying within 60 days, just the next planning board meeting, whenever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also at the discretion of public safety.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, for the annual, I'm talking about
Yeah. For the annual.
for the annual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they can grant it, but as part of the approval for getting the permit is,
right,
you have to get the approval of the.
not for every annual. Because the annual also says that you can only be there for 3 consecutive days. The annual is not giving someone a right to be there
Right, I
365 days
understand.
a year. It's just someone who's gonna be there every other week instead of having to get a permit every 3
Right.
days
Right.
and save them money.
But I thought with the wording, they could be there 310 days a week,
No, I don't know.
because you can put a day in between. We don't have established how long between the 3-day periods.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, and if that's going to be that way, they can request that they go for site plan review. One might,
Yeah, that's where the dates of operation
Yeah,
and
or
hours of
come in, yeah.
operation come in, and you get to evaluate.
and if they change their dates of operation and change the terms of the permit, so you can come back and go, oh, this, you applied for this, but you're not doing this, so you need a site plan review.
it may be useful for the planning board to comment on what they consider
Yeah.
quasi-permanent, so to give public safety some idea of what that board thinks, as well as what the select board thinks in terms of operational times
Mhm,
in a given period.
mhm.
So maybe that's something,
Yeah.
to me, that's where the big
Yeah.
issue is. The bigger issue is,
Yeah.
do we want to even have food trucks?
Well, yeah,
But for the moment, they're allowed, unless we decide otherwise.
Right. Right.
So are these permits not coming to the board then?
Which board?
The selectmen? So are
No.
you no longer getting the applications?
No, I thought you were.
No, I thought it was
Because
going permit, right?
You just kept referring to public safety doing this.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I meant the select board.
Okay, I just, I
meant
wanted to
the
clarify.
code enforcement officer.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, okay, but the board still wants to see these applications and vote on them. So the person still needs,
It's our ordinance.
yes, the person still needs to do some
Right.
planning and apply to the selectmen
Right,
to get the permit.
right.
Okay, good, that's all I wanted, that's what I wanted to make sure of. Yep, good.
So should there be language that says application must be submitted at least?
I'd put it at least 10 days in advance.
7 days, keep it at 7 days.
Well, the ordinance doesn't say a time, right?
No,
I'd make it 14 days because there's 2 weeks between selectmen's meetings normally.
Except in the summer when there's,
Yeah, but we can handle that on an as-needed basis, but I'd say 14 days, Dave.
okay.
Because there's 2 weeks between selectmen's meetings.
Only other question I had on this, the certificate of insurance, in the amount of $100,000. I just took that, what Plymouth was doing, is that?
sure, see if it provides a hardship to anybody.
Yeah, I would leave it at that.
Good.
Okay, so we'll probably take this up at our next meeting when we have a next meeting, and we'll have to take some input from the planning board and make a final decision at that point in time. Okay. I know that. Oh, okay, reports for the 2021 annual report.
You have several committees, Margaret, that you got the solid waste committee. I just wanted some guidance on who Sharon should be reaching out to for reports. And if there are any that you don't care about, I mean, the town report is up to 100 pages now, so I just wanted to make sure that you wanted a report from every committee.
I think that we do, but I think that we should limit the words.
A page each.
A page or a half a page. Half a page for some of them, I think would be fine.
Why don't we say half a page, but
I don't
if
know
you
how
want
many
more,
words that works out to, but if it's 200 or 250 words or,
Mhm.
couple paragraphs.
yeah,
I think you just gotta get the names of the committee members in the
Yeah.
250 words.
yeah.
Yeah, if you did it for one sheet.
I'd say one
that's
sheet
gonna be
page.
Cleaner when you look at it.
Yeah.
rather than if you just broke it
Okay.
for multiple
All right.
committees. on
We
one
should do
sheet.
that for the selectmen too.
I don't think you can with everything going on.
I think I can. I know how to use bullets.
Okay, so you're okay with municipal solid waste, renewable energy, recycling, and chapel committee as the ones you want?
Yep.
I think the
Okay.
history folks would
Oh, history, all right.
Yeah.
like to get their 2 cents in.
And these,
I mean, I
these
think
don't,
the chapel committee is not an official town committee, nor is the historical
Correct.
society. However, we
Yeah.
can extend the invitation and they can either take it up or not take it up. Anybody
Okay,
that
fair
isn't part of the town structure is certainly able to report.
Yeah, there's a lot of community reports that we
Yeah.
include in it,
Mhm.
such as the adaptive program.
Mhm.
We do include one from the Academy BTS,
From the Ray Center.
the Ray Center.
Yeah, all those could be a
Yeah.
page.
So those
Yeah.
are all.
Yeah.
The
you know,
usual
part of the-
suspects.
The usual suspects.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
all right, good. Thank you for
Um,
that guidance.
Letter to Casella Ray, that renewal of solid waste. I brought this up because I didn't want to forget it. That our contract with them expires in 2023, and we want to kind of give them a heads up that we're looking at other suppliers. Right.
Are there other suppliers?
Yes,
Mhm.
there's the possibility of
Going
sending our
some,
garbage to Concord and having it all recycled through burning.
I think there's a meeting today
there is a meeting this evening, yeah.
to hear what,
Yeah, well,
they put the contract on the agenda,
They-
right? So we need to hear what they're gonna say.
The contract is on the agenda. To what extent the
And
Right.
which
contract is
meeting
on
is
the
this?
agenda, I do not know.
Which
The
meeting?
Pemmy Baker
Oh,
solid
okay, I just
waste.
wanted to make sure it wasn't our group.
No, no.
But we're members of the Pemmy
Yes, we
Baker.
are.
Right, there were what,
Proud members.
Yeah.
13 towns, is that it? Is in the
There's
contract?
like it's upwards to 19 towns.
9, yeah, so,
And that contract doesn't expire until 2023?
May have, yeah.
but I think the issue here is that if it's gonna be discussed tonight, that gives us the opportunity to potentially write a letter to Casella saying that now that the conversation has been opened about
Yeah.
the next contract, we want to inform you that, and then whatever we want to say, that we're looking at other,
Well,
Potential
I would be careful
vendors.
what you say,
oh, yeah, no, I mean that, that's right,
just because we've been down this road before
right,
and found that they were the only game in town.
right.
Yeah.
But just to give us the legal standing to
Yeah.
be able to say, we want
Oh, no,
to,
no.
check around.
Right.
And from the Municipal Solid Waste Committee standpoint, they are very much in favor of this plant down at this operation down in Concord.
Is that operation up and running?
Yeah,
And they're apparently interested in us because we're so small,
yeah.
unlike a lot of other places.
Good luck
We
with your decision.
provide an hour of energy to somebody.
Okay. All righty. So yes, I think we should do that letter, Mark.
Okay,
Um,
I'll draft it for next meeting.
Road project contract approval. You saw my.
Yeah.
You saw my email. I'm trying to understand where we are in the 150,000 general engineering contract that we have with HEB?
Yep, and I did send you an email back. We have approximately 31,000 left in that account.
Mhm.
The contract amendment that I shared with you and I'm asking you to approve would, we would not be necessarily using any more of that 31,000. We wouldn't have to. Right now, we've committed, we've signed a contract with them, which would use an additional 28,000 of the 31,000.
Okay,
All right. However, we can set that aside, and for the $98,000, they will finish the work on phase 2, right? So that's the remaining $28,000 worth of work. Plus, they will combine the two projects together and do the bid documents for both as a single project.
So this is a $61,000 add-on approximately?
Yes, it is. It actually comes out to 70,000 add-on, but it's more
it's-
work than we currently have them under contract for.
So we authorized what, 150 initially, correct? Or was it 100?
150.
Yeah.
150 for general engineering. We've spent about 119,000.
Okay, so we got 30,000 left. So
Yeah.
if we add this, it gives us up to 210 for general engineering and bid process, correct?
If we did this contract, when you go back to phase 1, all the engineering that we've had done for that and the work that HEB has done so far on phase 2, it would total our engineering costs at $183,596. Okay. If we did the 98,000. Okay. Now we are expecting a project that's going to come in around $2 million total for both sections of Snowsbrook and all the way down Valley Road and Tecumseh Road. We're looking at about $2 million for that. So we're looking at 8 to 9%
Right, gotcha.
engineering.
So it's an additional, how much to make this work? 31 or is it 60? I'm getting late in the day and my numbers are getting confused.
Well, I was confused before.
No, I think I'm on the right path here.
Yes, you are. It's about 70,000 total more.
Okay, but we have 30,000 in the account, correct?
Well, that's taking the 30,000 into account.
So
It would add 70,000 more. It would be about 100,000.
on top of what we've spent.
That's correct.
And we have 30 left, so it's 70.
That's
So-
correct.
So it'd be 250 approximately.
Yes,
How are you
total.
So I'm getting to 250, you're at 210, and you're saying 2 million. So I'm at 2.5, I'm at 1.5%, and you're at 0.9. I mean, I'm at 10.5 and you're at 0.9 or 9. Is that right?
That's correct. So we're 7 to 9% total for engineering, all in engineering costs on the total of both phases.
Right, but how do I get to 2.5? We have the 150 initial, correct?
Mhm.
And what did we spend on 150?
We've spent about 83 to 85,000 so far.
So 85, that leaves us 65. And they want a total of another 70, right, to do this?
They want a total of another 98 if you're looking at gross numbers.
Okay, so 98.
Yeah. So it would come up to about $184,000. Total engineering, what we've spent plus
Yeah.
the 98.
And we spent 185
We've spent
and 98.
85 right now. 85 right now. We're talking about adding another 98,000.
Okay, so it's,
Yep.
so where's the 130? That number 132 coming from?
What number of 132?
I'm off here. So the total engineering is gonna be 0.9% of the $2 million.
That's correct.
All right. I'm fine with this to get it done.
Where is the money coming from? Can
The
you just,
money, we already have, we don't have to spend any more money out of our general engineering budget. We can keep that off to the side for anything that we have in the future. So we would have 31,000 that we're going to take out of the equation right now. All right. The $98,000 would come from the phase 2 engineering allowance. Okay. And we already have cash on hand in order to cover that. Because now we're just, instead of doing it in 2 pieces, we're just going to have one big project.
but phase 1,
Yeah.
this work is not related to our original phase 1.
Yes, it is finishing, it is getting the bid documents ready and getting it out to bid at the end of March, like his contract says. So it is related to that. But yes, we have to raise the money at town meeting in March of this year.
Okay, so if we sign this contract now, the money, can you just explain where does that money come from? Does it come from the $1 million that we set aside for phase 1?
Yes, part of it can be considered coming from that. We also have road repair monies that it can come out of. Okay, and we have, if we needed to go back to it because something happens at town meeting, it can come out of the 31,000 if it needs to. So we have enough existing money right now that we could charge the $98,000 off to.
Yeah, I was just concerned that
Before we get approval from the town.
we don't get approval, we have to get approval from the town for phase 2, and some of this is actually related to the phase 2, which is now going to be part of the expanded phase 1.
Right.
But we haven't put that before the voters.
You do have the general engineering money that, and if you want to pay for it before town meeting, we have 31,000 in the existing general engineering money. We have $70,000 that's in our road repair accounts. We there are some other small road repair
So
numbers.
we have the
that you can
money,
take it
we
out.
have the money in the budget right now.
Right.
That's correct.
But this contract does not require us to pay the 98,000 right now. It simply says we agree that 98,000 is the cost of doing this.
No,
Most of the work will be done before town meeting, so we will expend most of the 98,000 prior.
So instead of returning money to the undesignated fund balance, if we don't, the only short sight we would have here is if we have a major road repair. that needs to
Yes.
be- We'd have to be scratching for the money. What we're hoping to do what Mark is hoping to do is pay for this engineering and replace the money into where we took it from once town meeting approves phase 2.
That's
Right.
correct.
And what we
Yeah.
could do possibly is put something into town meeting next year as a way, if phase 2 is not approved, to get this money back to where it raise this money to get it back to where it needs to be done. I think what Mark is thinking, not to put words in his mouth, is that if we do this now, it consolidates the work and gets the big package out. as opposed to putting off another year to see you
Right.
get the bid package out.
Right.
Yeah, because if we waited till after March, they wouldn't finish this engineering until
Right.
June or July.
I'm just sensitive to using
Yeah,
voter approved money for a purpose other than what it was originally intended. So we just need to make sure that we're staying straight on that. And, you know, I have every confidence that the voters are going to approve getting the roads done. They've been asking for us
Have
to
you
start
driven
working
that
on
road lately?
that
Yeah.
for a long
Right.
time.
Exactly.
However, I just want to
Yeah.
be very clear
Scrupulous,
about
Mhm.
where is the money coming from in advance of
It
getting,
is coming from road funds.
right,
it's
not
coming from road funds. That's
you know,
correct.
Building chicken coops or, you know.
right,
Right.
right. Okay, all right, well, I'm okay with that then. So can I have a motion to approve
The HEB contract.
Mark, you're the one that signs this, right?
Yeah, I will sign it. Yeah.
Motion to approve Mark being able to sign the contract with HEB Engineering.
I'll make that motion.
Can I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I know you've been waiting a long time. Water project update, a hydrant installation.
Right, the infamous bypass if need be. Hopefully, I've talked with the contractor who is going to do the installation. We had a discussion about how to go about it and what we could do to help him out and timing. Timing is his hopes are prior to Christmas. And I said, well, I need a hard date. And they're unable to give it to me right at this point in time. But I told them that if it cannot be done prior to Christmas, it needs to wait until after the holidays. So, and then I said, therefore, you know, your winter conditions are going to be even worse. So let's see what we can do about getting it done prior to Christmas. So they said they would get back to me, and this was not yesterday, this was Monday,
Okay.
so.
Alrighty.
And we do have parts and pieces on hand for the project.
All right, board concerns and directives. Any further? Okay. Correspondence?
Yeah, I don't think that we should worry about the state composting rules. The solid waste committee talked a little bit about them last night, and it's not gonna be anything that we're gonna need to worry about
Okay.
at
And
this
then
point in time.
we need to go into non-public, Mark?
Yeah, I have two questions for you under personnel.
So can I have a motion to go into non-public?
I so move.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Wendy.
See you
Thank
tomorrow
you.
morning.